my shit. What's that? You get hit with a stick. Hey, y'all get screwed up, girl, I can't see this bitch. Them niggas broke, but we getting rich. I'm real niggas can't serving the junkie, they need my bitch. Hey, she trying to turn dress to bitch.
You can keep that one. Let's go. I'm feeling way too high right now. Let's go. Let's go. I'm feeling high as fuck, man. Boot it up in this bitch.
Zooming got that drip, bitch.
I'm feeling way too high right now. This devil caught tripping is putting me down. Spinning that block with like 400 rounds. Taking with king, so I'm chasing that crown. I do it all while I'm sipping on crown. Tryna dive in some pussy, a nigga might drown. I know you fake kick, you can't come around. These niggas they rock cause they love the sound. We finna go hit the plug and go get a pound. All of my brothers gorillas, they banging like apes. I know a nigga that got 3 drapes. Pulling the money, I carry my weight. You say the plug, nigga, don't be late. I don't give a fuck about no 10-minute wait. Nigga, just hurry and bring me a plate. Shaking him down, I might put him on skates. Say he want pressure, he sealing his face. A whole lot of front end, back end, walk down, run down. I had a long day trying to roll me a blunt now. Shorty a D, but she like how that gun sound. She setting it up, she getting them guns now. Smoking on Reggie, we smoking on rats now. Niggas ain't having y'all smoking on straight brown. I might call Randy, I need me a bullet. Don't come around me flashing little Playco with bullet. If I get mad at little gun, I'ma pull it. Been a bad ass jits in school playing hooky. He think he ballin', that boy is a rookie. He thought he was eating till I took his cookies. Me and this bad asshole playing footsie. She wanna go spin the bag up in Tootsie. You knew I was a killer and you still wouldn't push me. Fuck on this bitch, her pussy wet and gushy. Winning this money, I got the best book. Had to go run it up, you know how long it took me. These niggas tripping, tryna overlook. Promoters, they booking, tryna overbook me. He asked if we bringing guns in, I'm like, I knew he was pussy, it's time to spin. He saying, should we? I'ma keep popping my shit. You get hit with a stick. I don't run with nobody, it's me and this bitch. Getting booted off drugs, I can't see in this bitch. Them niggas broke, but we getting rich. I'm a real nigga, can't be in the mix. Serving the junkie, they needin' the fix. Haitian shawty turn the dreads into wigs. Jamaican shawty turn the pig into pork. I can't go back and forth with these niggas, they been through a lot of pain. I was kicking down doors. Taekwon, he got 60 for robbing the store. All of my niggas, they own that and more. Dodging the bull like a matador. Say she miss me, she not mad anymore. I'm like, thank God, cause that's my favorite whore. Hell yeah.
It's your boy Playcosoul and you're tuning in to Rap Chronic. I grew up in North Lauderdale, Florida, like North Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, to be exact. So growing up in South Florida, I was jumping around a lot because like every couple of years my parents was like, you know, we was moving houses, we was, you know, going from different situation. So I was moving city to city, but I was in Broward the entire time, you know. My experiences, like when I was in like elementary school to middle school, it was fun because like you have so much culture, you got so much like vibe, like you got different type of sounds like every year, every week, like you got some new shit coming out, like it was niggas doing a jerk before the jerk was even hot, all type of shit, like it was shit like that, like we was juking, you know, if you're from Broward, you gonna know what the fuck I'm talking about, but like you juking and sticking and you feel me, bopping and shit like that, like what niggas doing that shit in other states. I feel like Broward really set the tone for a lot of that shit. So it's like the sound of everything here is just different, you feel me? I was always into sports when I was legit. Like from 5 years old, I was doing stuff like playing Little League football, Pee Wee, shit like that. A lot of Hill Lions and shit, like I was legit. But yeah, like everything around that, like I was in church, you know, like with my family, you feel me? I was really family oriented as a kid, so we would do things like that. We was like heavily Christian, like we was Christians, so we always used to go to church. And like my dad, he was a drummer for the church, so like growing up, I would always be like sitting down while they reading the Bible verses, and when they started doing the choir and all that stuff, it would be my dad who was drumming and shit like that. So like from legit, I was like 5, 6 years old, I was off rip, like seeing music and shit like that, like drumming and all that. So after church was over, he would let me play on the drums and like mess around and shit like that. And like they'll have a keyboard, people playing guitars and stuff like that. I was always just interested from a young age, you feel me? It was always just like there, you feel me? My grandmother was actually a pastor and my grandfather was a preacher. So it's like everybody who came to the church, like they would always just pay special attention to like my family because, you know, like that's my grandparents obviously. So it's like I used to always get in trouble with me and my brother. We was like tapping on the back of the chairs, making beats and stuff like that, like, you know, in between them drumming, like while they preaching and shit like that. We'd be over there playing around and we'd always get in trouble. But it was just small stuff like that, like that kind of just grew into like basically like music shit. Like I don't really know how to say it exactly, but music shit. Like my brother Craig, he played a big part in all that because like he was the one who was with me, like everything. He was actually doing music before I was, like when we was younger, You know, he would say he wanted to be a rapper and stuff like that. I would always stick to football. You know, he would be in between sports and rapping. So growing up, I was always seeing him writing rhymes and writing this and writing that. So it's like we kind of just fed off of each other. Me and my brother Craig actually had an older brother who was like a half brother. So like he moved in with us when he was about 13. And aside from church, like he would be the one who had a CD player. And like he would always have a bunch of different CDs and stuff like that, and we would be listening to the music. We would be listening to like old school, like Lil Wayne and stuff like that. And like I had never really heard stuff like that. So with my older brother, he would be like going through his CDs. He'll be listening. Like I'll be asking him, "Can I use a CD player? Can I use a CD player?" And I'm like 8 years old at that time. So like I was introduced to a whole lot of new hip hop and shit like that. Listening to that music, I came across Lil Wayne when he was dropping. And Hot Boys and shit like that. My brother put me on all that. So I would start watching their music videos, and like I would see how Birdman and like Autumn and BG and all them, like they would be like, what was that video? The Block Is Hot, when they running down the street and shit like that, rapping the song and shit like that. Like that shit, from the moment I seen shit like that, I was like, damn, bro, that shit gotta be so fire, bro. Like imagine doing that shit like with your life, you feel me? Like, so I was just like addicted. I started writing, listening to stuff like Jay-Z, listening to, you feel me, hip hop like that, Jay-Z, Kanye West and shit like that. But yeah, the Hot Boys, I was mainly listening to artists like Chief Keef and shit like that. Like that nigga music was going crazy, bro. I remember when that nigga got out of jail. Like he got out of jail at the end of my freshman year, and then when he dropped that Finally Rich, when he dropped Finally Rich, bro, that was all niggas was listening to, that macaroni time, that was bumping that shit back to back, bro. Like that was the type of shit, like the way he had that shit lit. And then that when he dropped Don't Like, that video, my cousin had put me onto that video. When I saw that video, like that was just a whole cultural shift in itself right there. So like us as Jits, like we seeing that shit, we just like, that's what we focused on now. Like we like fuck everything else. Like we want to get lit like that. So when I'm in the locker room, we turning up the music, and then one day my dog DJ, he was playing what he played Migos. He played when that new Migos sound started coming out. I'm like a freshman in high school, bro. So we in the locker room turning up. I'm like, bro, who the fuck is that? And Hannah Montana. Yeah, it was like that shit was lit as fuck, bro. And that shit, like, that was really a shift though. Like that was when like niggas started hearing that new sound, that new wave, that Rich Homie Quan, all that shit. Like that shit was vibe, bro. That shit was crazy. But we turned up to that shit in the locker room getting lit. And like that's more shit that's just stuck in the back of my head type shit on that. You feel me? Like that's what like made niggas like, all right, maybe I need to start making music. You feel me? So like I'm started tapping in. I got a MacBook at home. I'm a Jit. So what it was, I started playing around on Logic Pro. I figured out how to do the little keyboard shit on the Logic Pro. So I ain't got no music equipment, no nothing. I'm just on the computer, just fuck around in Logic Pro, clicking the sounds, clicking shit like that. I'm just trying to figure that shit out. And I'm like, damn, nigga, this shit, like, that's when I was like, all right, bet I can actually do this shit. Fuck that. I went to 4 different high schools, actually. I went to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I went to, after that, I went to Boca High for 1 year, and then I went to JP Terravella, and then I ended up going to alternative school in Palm Beach, where I ended up graduating and finishing out high school. Then after that, I moved to Orlando. In 2017, I had moved to Orlando and go to Full Sail University. That's like a music school and shit like that. That's an expensive school, my nigga. I don't know if you know about Full Sail University, nigga, but that's an expensive ass school. So I'm trying to figure out how the fuck I'm gonna get in that bitch. Me and my people figured out, all right, bet we finna do this little scholarship. We applied for these scholarships, and thankfully, a nigga got in that bid. Nigga finessed his way into the college, you feel me? Had to do that. So I finessed my way into the college or whatever. So I got a MacBook, I got all type of shit. I'm like, damn, bro, this shit crazy. You feel me? Like, Full Sail really gave me my first microphone, my first all that. So that's when I was able to actually, all right, let me see if I can record a song. So I tested it out, and like, obviously I was terrible, nigga. I was garbage. Like I was pure trash. And like, but it was funny though, cause it was all a learning experience. You feel me? That school, which I really fuck with it. Like they preach networking and like talking to people, like trying to, you feel me? Trying to actually build your shit, trying to fuck with niggas and shit like that. So like they hold network events, all type of shit. And really that shit just a lit ass party. You feel me? So niggas just going in that bed talking to different people, niggas, females. You feel me? Just everybody exchanging information, and like that in itself is just dummy helpful, cause you just building. You feel me? And that shit lit at the same time. But the classes was hard. Like, you feel me? I ended up not being able to finish college, unfortunately, because I ended up having a son. You feel me? Like, you know, my girl moved out with me. You know, it ended up just happening that way. But I'm thankful that college shit was lit while I had it, you feel me? I wouldn't change nothing though. I learned a lot of shit from that, but hell yeah, I fuck with that college shit. The nigga who's my manager now, you know, that was really just my homeboy at first. Like my manager now, that was just my dog I met at Full Sail. Really, he was going for the music business shit. And I was going for, you know, obviously music production, trying to make beats, trying to engineer all that shit. And then through him, I met actually through my boy Vital, I met this nigga, I'm tripping. Through my dog Vital, we was actually making music together. He invited me over to a spot, and we had the same class in music shit. And he was like, all right, hey bro, I fuck with you, you feel me? You wanna come back to the spot? Yeah. From that day, I went to a spot, we just started knocking out some music. We started knocking out some tracks and shit like that. And I'm like, damn bro, this nigga actually fire. And then that shit actually ended up becoming like way closer than like anything, you really feel me? That's one of my brothers now, like we like family, you feel me? And like, that shit just one nigga, I got countless amounts of fucking unreleased music with that nigga. And then my manager now, he actually hit me personally and he was like, bro, I think you can do this shit. He was like, bro, like, I have faith in you. I feel like we can really push this shit and make this shit go somewhere. So I was like, fuck it, we were going all in, you feel me? So that's why it's just like, they talk to me about having a manager and shit like that, but it's really somebody I actually trust and fuck with. It's not like no random ass nigga, like no random ass dude. Like, don't get it twisted. Niggas just wanting to have a white guy, you feel me, as a manager and be like, oh yeah, you feel me, I'm professional. It's like, nah, that nigga gonna fuck you over, you feel me? But nah, college was an experience. That shit was fire. Like I met brothers there, like real ass people. So in 2015, I started listening to Joey Badass and like boom bap. Like you feel me? Like that's when that nigga started doing his shit, and like that's a whole different New York sound. Like that's that boom bap shit, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I come across this nigga, I'm like, bro, I'm not looking back. I'm not looking at no other artists right now. I'm just looking at what the New York niggas was doing, because Florida didn't have no motion at the time. There wasn't nobody else that was really making shit buzz. But that New York sound back then in 2015, 2016, that shit was it, you feel me? So I was trying to figure out how to make boom bap beats, but I was trying to figure out how to make them in my own way, because like, I always knew from when, like the beginning of this shit, I didn't want to really ride no waves. I kind of wanted to do my own thing, like from the jump, you feel me? I already knew to make it in this bitch, you feel me? You can't just sound like any other nigga, you feel me? So I'm listening to they shit. I'm, you feel me, doing my thing, trying to make beats, you feel me? I'm making a whole shit ton of beats. And like, for a beginner and that shit, I was making like 2 to 3 beats per day. And like, for, you feel me, for a trash eye nigga, that shit pretty good. Nah, for real, but what's it called? That New York sound, like, that shit kind of took my shit to another level, because like, that shit pushed me, like, I also like a lot of respect to them, because those are niggas I really look up to, like Joey Badass and them niggas, only for the simple fact that that's just what I was, that kind of pushed me to go harder. Like the shit that they was talking about, they wasn't talking about no bullshit. If you know Joey Badass, all them boys, you know, Pro Air ain't talking about no bullshit. Them boys talking about that shit, you feel me? So I don't know, that kind of just pushed my sound, you feel me? Listening to them boys, trying to catch up, really. I was trying to catch up, but realizing I didn't have to play catch up, you feel me? I'm a jit, you feel me? So 2015, 2016, that's where I was, you feel me, just trying to figure out how the fuck I can really make a sound in general. Not just my own sound, but a sound in general, you know. That was really the beginning of that shit. All that shit, like, it was just something about that sound, like, it was only for the simple fact that they was into a lot of spiritual shit. They was into all that meditation, they was into all that type of shit, and like, that shit was different, because there wasn't no rappers like talking about meditating and astral projection and shit like that. Wasn't nobody talking about that shit. And like, that shit really expanded a nigga mind. So like, that shit, me being a church kid and like, you know, God, I grew up on that shit consistent, and they talking about, oh yeah, you are a God, you feel me, you're this and that, like you're a powerhouse yourself, you feel me? Like, that shit right there was just like different to me. That was a whole different shift, you feel me? That was different from the normal shit, because everybody back then was just talking about what, you know, I was listening to Chief Keef and shit like that too, but like, that was just a whole different aspect of things that helped push that shit, you feel me? It pushed me to start meditating myself. Like, I'm over there buying chakra stones and shit like that. Like, I'm trying to be like them niggas. I'm trying to like get my mental right, because they taught me that shit was cool. They're like, oh, getting your mental right, that shit cool. I'm a young nigga, I'm in high school, I'm impressionable, you feel me? That time era, like, that shit was just like, that was it. For the most part, my creative process is fairly simple, you know, because it's all like shit that's coming from inside of me personally, because it's like, you know, I have a son, you feel me, I have shit like this, so it's like, when I go make music, I don't really like to fuck around, like, I don't really like spend too much time on bullshit. Like, yeah, I'll drink a little bit, yeah, I'll smoke, you feel me, do whatever I gotta do, you feel me, get right, get lit. But at the same time, I'm kind of taking that shit serious because, you feel me, it's time and energy, you feel me? And that's something that you can't never really get back. So I kind of always try to take it serious. But when I really get in this bitch and I like lock in, like, always gotta have some fucking water. Always gotta have some trees. Feel me, shit like that. For the most part, most of my music is really just mental notes for myself. Like, a lot of the shit I'm saying, like a lot of the shit that I talk about is mental notes for me to just, you feel me, I go back to my music a lot, like often. I don't really listen to nobody else besides myself, like, really. I don't like listening to nobody else, really. I just listen to my music because it's all mental notes, like I was saying. Like, I be telling myself shit, and like, I be, like, you really gotta listen to my music to understand what the fuck I'm talking about, really. But it's just like, I don't know, bruh. I be locked down. Yeah, nah, like, I recently cut my hair, like, the other day. I decided to, like, go ahead and chop that shit off. I wasn't even much feeling that shit anymore, honestly. I was just like, fuck it, you feel me? Like, people, I don't know, it's like, I don't give a fuck about stereotypes, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. A motherfucker gonna look at you how they look at you, whether you white or black, whatever, blah, blah, blah. White people say they, you feel me? Or, actually, sorry, black people, like, oh yeah, like, it's not professional, it's not this and that. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. I feel like, if you gonna be a nigga, gonna be who he is, especially now. Like, it's 2022. You feel me? Everybody's doing this shit. Everybody's getting lit. Everybody got their own type of fashion, their own type of style. You feel me? So, for me personally, I had dreads for like dummy long. You feel me? So like, I'll really be ahead of a wave for a lot of this shit. You feel me? A lot of niggas was getting dreads. I was already growing my shit. I was already trying to get right. You feel me? But I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm past that shit. I don't really need it. You feel me? Like, I feel like now it's the time where it's like, this gonna set the man apart from you.
Hey. Let's go. Hey, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's go. Hey, tryna fuck on the baby. I be feeding the ass, it's wet. It's missing the sentence. The boy that was sleeping on that. It's a nigga with magic. Speeding up back to the west. Wait. I play for real, run up on me and bang